Hello, fellow seekers. Welcome back for a special segment. I'm doing again the book review. And if you missed the last book review, it got some very popular or positive results back. So I'm going to stick with that. One of the things that I did was I tried to make my book reviews something tangible. So I divided into these categories. And I'm going to put these categories down in the bottom of the post. I'm going to read them for those who this is their first time with me. But the categories on the book review are going to talk about reading level, impact, meaning how did it impact me, implementation, how easy is it to implement, how enjoyable was the book, and then the Christianity scale. Again, 10 out of 10 on the Christianity scale is basically the Bible. A 0 means it doesn't lean either way as far as Christian or theologically, I guess. And then a negative 10 would be something that would be basically anti-Christian. And I haven't read anything like that yet, but we'll see. So the book that I'm going to review for you today is called Covenantal and Dispensational Theologies. And it's 4 views of the continuity of Scripture. Now this book says it's written by Brent E. Parker and Richard J. Lucas. However, when you read the book, it's a little misleading that way because the way the book is, think of it like it's broken into 4 sections. So what they did here is they basically got the 4 foremost experts in each one of the systematic theologies and had them kind of write what they believed the systematic theology said, and then they wrote a rebuttal to what everybody else said about their systematic theology. Really neat. So just so that you have the names, Michael Horton does the covenant theology, which let's call that one way over here on the left. And then you have the next one in line would be progressive covenant theology. That one's done by Stephen Wellum. And then you have progressive dispensationalists, and that one's done by Darrell Brock. And then you have traditional dispensationalists, far over here on the right, by Mark Snowberger. And by the way, left or right has no relationship to anything political. I just picked those. So let's get into it. Again, book is insanely interesting. But I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I had to read this book twice to really understand it. I bought a whiteboard, which you can kind of see behind me, right over there. And I filled that entire whiteboard up, each one with a section so that I could try to better understand the differences. And I'm not going to try to explain them to you. I'm not really going to go into it very much. But the reading level on this book is basically like a doctorate level to a master's level. A master's level to a doctorate level. I had to stop quite a bit. I had to look up words. I was not prepared for how difficult of a read this was. So I don't want anybody to take this lightly, that this is something that's light reading and you can kind of just pick it up. It's not. Each one of these guys are brilliant in their field that added their contributions. And they expect you to have a very high knowledge of the Bible when they're writing. They assume the readers of this know something. So I would not just recommend this for everybody just to pick up and run with. I just wouldn't. It was a very difficult read. Okay. And then the impact is a 3 out of 10. Meaning, how much did it change my life? It was very intellectual, and it made me think a lot about theology, and I'm just going to tell you what it really brought out in me. Is I really was a cherry-picking Christian, for sure. And what I mean by that is I would pick out this one verse and I would spiritualize it for sure. And I'd say, yep, spiritualize. And then I would go to another verse and I would say, yep, we need to interpret this literally, word for word. And your interpretation of the Bible needs to be more contiguous than that. You can't just say this one's spiritual and this one's literal. And for now, let's just say that one side of the field, the covenant side, tends to spiritualize a little bit more. And let's just say the dispensational side for sure tends to want to read everything literally. I drew out of this that you really have to read the Bible as in there is one contiguous thought from beginning to end. And that God's plan comes through that way. And the way that you read and interpret the Bible cannot be this cherry-picking create my own theology. That cannot be how God intended it. So it was important for me to read that and recognize what I was doing was wrong. But as far as impact, it wasn't this huge revelation where I changed everything about who I was. So I put this impact very low. This is a 3. And then implementation. Again, is it super easy to implement? A 0 or a 1. Is it really hard to implement? It's an 8. The book was hard to read. The lining up your hermeneutics, which is the term for how you consistently read the Bible, kind of the rules that you follow in which to interpret the Bible. Lining that up, it feels impossible. It's something that takes years of just reading the Bible and refining, and this is not an easy implement at all. I don't know what else to say about that. Enjoyment. This was like pulling teeth out of a stuck mule for me. So I put this enjoyment way down at a 2. I did not enjoy this book. It mentally challenged me on every day, every way, every level. To get through it, it was rough. It's not that big of a book either, by the way, folks. It's a thin book, and it took me 2 years. I'm not a fast reader, but it was brutally hard to read. And then the Christianity piece. So this is like a +8. This is all about Christians. This has everything to do about Christian theology. This is how do you define your theology? How do you start to understand that you can't cherry pick verses in the Bible? This is for sure for Christians. If you're not a Christian, this is nearly an impossible read because of what it's asking. And I'm just going to add this. It does, and Stephen Wellum says this quite a bit in the book, that that these theologies agree on the most important parts, and where they disagree, it's kind of that problem with where we're at in Western Christianity right now, where it feels like all we're doing is throwing stones at other Christians, where we're arguing about the stuff that isn't as important, and we're not focused on the most important things of the Bible. In fact, we can't even agree on what the 10 most important things of the Bible are to agree on, I guess. Nevertheless, if you're going to read this, if you're going into it to read it so that you can say ABC theology is wrong or XYZ is right, or I would encourage you not to go into that book this way. I would encourage you to help you understand that there is these concepts and ideas out there about Christianity that are still causing some divisions, and use it as partly a tool in which to bridge the gap between those divisions versus create harder or faster divisions. And just because it's going to come up in the next book review. Again, this took 2 years for me to get through. I did have to read it twice. I literally took pages and pages and pages of notes to get through it. But because of this book, I ended up reading another book. I read the book by Stephen Wellum, his own book, which is Kingdom Through Covenant. And we'll talk about that one probably next. But for now, I'm going to put the link is where to get it. And this won't be an Amazon link. This is going to be a Christian Books link. I'll put all the information down there and how I scored it. I encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this video. Of course, if you feel compelled, you can donate to my cause. God bless you all and keep you. Bye for now.